Hello everyone, good afternoon. This is Transfer Talk. The window is firmly open now and there is plenty going on. Arne Slot was faced with more questions over the future of Trent Alexander-Arnold. We're live to Liverpool in just a moment. And of course the team are here, Dan Bardell, Dan Carr and Kweku Afori. Look at how excited they are to get involved in this show. They're ready to go through all of the big transfer stories. Showing his guns, what's he doing? There's a boost for Tottenham as Heung-min Son extends his stay with the club. We are live to their training ground this hour. Could Mark Guéhi be set for a return to Chelsea? We have the latest on that potential move. And we've an update on Antony's future. Could he be on his way out? We'll be live to Greece this hour as one club shows interest in the winger. All right, to Liverpool, though, first, where Arne Slot was asked once again about the futures of Trent Alexander-Arnold, Mo Salah and Virgil van Dijk. Vinny O'Connor was in the news conference for us. And Vinny, A, did you find a new creative way to ask the obligatory question about those three? And B, did you get any updates from Slot?
It's no, I know, pretty standard question, I think, that we had to ask today once more. But I think we kind of knew the situation anyway. There was nothing really further to add to it from Arne Slot today, because I spoke to Virgil van Dijk after the game against Manchester United. He again reiterated that there's no agreement between himself and Liverpool at the moment, but he remains relaxed about the situation. Mo Salah, of course, spoke to Pat Davison in the build-up to the game as well. But again, he made the point that they're still quite a way apart from reaching any kind of compromise, his representatives with Liverpool Football Club as well. And then on top of that, there's the Trent Alexander-Arnold situation. And again, we understand that there's been no further bids from Real Madrid, Liverpool having already turned down a £20 million bid for Trent Alexander-Arnold. But the lines of communication are still open between Liverpool and Trent's representatives as well, and Trent has at no point made it clear that he wants to leave Liverpool either. So there's still a bit of a way to go in terms of sorting out the futures of all three. Of course, what there has been since that game against Manchester United is further scrutiny as to whether the ongoing situations could be a distraction in the longer term, and certainly when it came to the performance of Trent Alexander-Arnold at the weekend as well. And we had to put it to Arne Slot once again as to whether it was affecting Trent, the ongoing speculation, that bid from Real Madrid, and indeed how he'd been affected by the scrutiny following that game against Manchester United. So Arne Slot, though, remains steadfast in his belief that off-field matters are not affecting his players on the pitch.
If we drop points when teams have injuries, people say, yeah, that's because you have injuries. If we drop points, if Mo misses the penalty against Madrid, he's distracted by his contract situation. If Trent has not his best performance, he's distracted by the contract situations. If they play really well, nobody tells me, yeah, that's because they have a contract situation. So we always try to find arguments, but 9 out of 10 times the best argument is the quality of the teams you face or the game plan the other team has.
And also, of course, there's a massive incentive for all three, well, not just all three, this entire Liverpool squad at the moment, because they are in pole position in the title race. Of course, they've got this semi-final in the League Cup against Spurs to look forward to, that opportunity to get to a final, of course, and win the first trophy of the season. So plenty for Liverpool to play for, plenty for them to be focused on the pitch as well. And Arne Slot, what gives him confidence that Liverpool can be successful this season is that he believes that they've deserved every point that they've earned so far in the Premier League title race as well. The other positive for Liverpool at the moment is they've got a pretty much fully fit squad as well. The only absentee, once again, will be Joe Gomez ahead of this game against Spurs.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Vinny. So, 3 Liverpool big players still remain out of contract in the summer. There was one Tottenham big player as well in the same situation, but that has changed because Spurs have confirmed that Heung-min Son has signed a 1-year contract extension. James Cole is at the club's training ground for us. Hello, James. Good to see you, mate. I mean, how well will this news go down with the Spurs fans?
Hello, yes, very well indeed. He's a hugely popular figure here, Sonny. Everyone loves Sonny, don't they, here at Spurs. He's got, 169 goals since joining from Bayer Leverkusen in 2015, easy for me to say. And he's still an integral player as well. Got the Golden Boot in 2020-21, along with Mo Salah. And when Harry Kane left the club, there was speculation that maybe Son would struggle. He hasn't. He's still a potent attacking threat. Maybe lost a bit of pace at age 32, but it was a bit of a no-brainer, really, from both sides, you'd think, both sides of that deal, to trigger the one-year extension, keep him here to 2026. Remember, Spurs have a lot of injury problems and illness problems in the camp at the moment, so his experience as well, really, really key. Yeah, it will go down very popular indeed.
Spurs have already got a young goalkeeper through the door in Kinski. What other areas do you expect them to strengthen next?
A striker is top of their list. They want someone who can play on the left, in the middle and on the right. One man who fits that bill is Randall Koli-Muani at Paris Saint-Germain. We understand they're interested, Tottenham, in a loan deal for him, but so too are Manchester United. He was a big signing for PSG, Muani. They paid over £70 million for him, but he's fallen out of favour with Enrique. He's not played many minutes this season, and the club may be open to sending him out on loan. Tottenham, one of the clubs interested in him. As you say, Kinski has already signed. He's got his work permit. He could play in this Carabao Cup semi-final first leg, but he's only trained twice, so you'd say maybe Fraser Forster or Austin would be more likely. We'll get a word from Postecoglou on that. And the other position Spurs are keen on is a defender because Udogie's still out long term. Van de Ven likewise. So they're looking in the market as well for a defender. I'll try and get some transfer update from Ange Postecoglou, but a bit like Arne Slot, don't count on it. Most managers keeping their cards very close to their chest for obvious reasons, because as soon as they express an interest in a player or even a position, the price tag then gets inflated. It's interesting, a lot of people talking about pressure being on Ange Postecoglou. He was very prickly in his post-match interviews after the defeat to Newcastle, but I think there's more pressure on Daniel Levy. Postecoglou is the long-term plan here, and he's got a lot of mitigating circumstances down to the bare bones in terms of his squad. I think the pressure is on Levy to deliver him some January transfers. As I say, interested in all three positions. They've got the keeper. They're now looking for an attacker and a defender, and it could be, for that reason, because of all of Spurs' injuries, a busy month here at Tottenham's training ground.
Great stuff. Thanks very much, James. Good luck speaking to Ange in a bit. Afternoon, chaps, once again. I mean, Son has been tied down, extended for a year. He's obviously been a key player for them, hasn't he, over the last few years. Would it have been a shock had they not done that, Tottenham?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was hard to think of Tottenham without Harry Kane, but I think it's probably even harder to think of them without Son. He's been such a big part of the club for so long now, since he made that move from Leverkusen. And I think he's had a bit of a bitty season this time round, but he's still a very, very important player for Spurs, whether that be playing through the middle or whether that be playing from the left. I think it's easy to forget that last season he got a lot of goals. He was a very key player for Spurs up top. They lost Harry Kane and people thought they might struggle for goals, but Son, in a different way, filled the void. And I think that's the key thing for Son now over the next few years at Tottenham. He's probably going to have to adapt his game a little bit, but I think he's intelligent enough to do that, and his record since he's been at the club speaks for itself. So at a time when there's not much good news for Tottenham, I think Tottenham fans would still look at this today as being good news.
Commercially as well, let's not forget how valuable Son is to Tottenham in terms of the fan base it's attracted to the football club. The pre-season tours are based around Son, and I think that he's a very valuable piece, not just on the pitch, but off the pitch as well for them. On the pitch, over the last 10 seasons, he gives you double figures year in, year out. Last year was maybe a down year, but still gave you double figures. This season, you've seen a reduction in maybe his physicality, his pace, but he's still so valuable in the Tottenham dressing room. The man who's seen it all at the club, they couldn't afford to lose him, so it makes sense they triggered the contract extension.
OK, well, let's move from Spurs to a game that involves Arsenal. They are taking on Newcastle in the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup tonight at the Emirates. Big game, that first leg. Keith Downey is there for us. Afternoon, Keith. We know Arsenal could look at adding a forward this month after the injuries to Saka and Nwaneri. Interest in Alexander Isak won't go away either, will it? Are Newcastle still very confident they can keep hold of him?
Yeah, Matt, I think I do think Newcastle will hold on to him this month. I don't think it's in their interests at all to sell him now. He's obviously in red hot form. He's scoring for fun. He scored in the last 7 matches, 9 in the last 7 games. And look, I think it would be a mistake for Newcastle to sell him now. Will they sell him in the summer? Potentially, if a huge offer comes in, but it would have to be a British transfer record well in excess of £100 million. And of course, if Newcastle qualify for the Champions League this season, it strengthens the club's hand with regards to hopefully keeping him longer term. He wants to play at the highest level. He wants to play in the Champions League every year. And while he had a taste of that a couple of seasons ago with Newcastle, I don't think he'd want another season out of the Champions League. So if Newcastle were to qualify this campaign, I think it would give Newcastle more chance of holding on to him. But look, clearly Arsenal like the player. Mikel Arteta went on the record to speak about it yesterday, and it adds a real twist, a different dynamic to tonight's game between Arsenal and Newcastle here at the Emirates, with Isak, of course, leading the line for the visitors.
I wanted to get your thoughts on Mark Gay as well, because we've been talking about the news that Chelsea are interested in taking him back. Now, Newcastle really wanted him in the summer. I think it was in the region of 4 bids in the end for him. Crystal Palace remained firm and he stayed there. But now this Chelsea bid, how do you think that will be received by Newcastle? Do they retain any interest in Gay?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? They do retain interest in him. Look, they were very keen to get him in the summer, weren't they? You're right in what you say. There were, I think, multiple bids, 4 or 5. It got to the stage where we didn't actually know, because it was a very protracted, attempted transfer that Newcastle failed to get over the line. I think their final offer for the Crystal Palace defender was a package of £70 million. I think it was 60 plus some add-ons that Crystal Palace turned down. So look, clearly they like the player. It'll be really interesting to see if that interest from Chelsea this window makes Newcastle come back to the table. But Eddie Howe again has gone on the record to say Newcastle can't sign this window unless they sell due to their PSR situation. So if they were to accelerate their move, or a potential next summer move for Guehi this window, they would need to sell someone either this month or before June the 30th. So it wouldn't be a simple transaction. But to answer your question, yes, they retain interest in the player, but Chelsea's interest in him now makes the situation a bit more complicated, because last summer it was only Newcastle that were at the table and they failed to get the deal done.
Yeah, Chelsea haven't put a bid in yet, but they are interested, so we will wait and see on that one. How about Newcastle and how active they could be this January? Because definitely there were PSR concerns in the summer which may have held them back. Do you expect it to be similar in January, or might they be more active?
Well, look, I think what they don't want is a similar situation to last summer, when we saw them frantically having to raise 60 million in transfer fees before June the 30th. We saw Elliot Anderson and Yankuba Minteh, 2 promising players that the club liked. We saw them being forced to sell them. They don't want to be back in that situation. If they were to try and sign Mark Guehi or someone else of that ilk this window, they would have to do that again. So that is the really difficult situation they are in at the moment. I expect, just listening to the way Eddie Howe is speaking, watching the team perform on the park, they're doing very well at the moment. I would be surprised if they brought in anyone significant this window, because it would then give them problems further down the line. I think they're more likely to keep their powder dry until the summer. And when the team are doing as well as they are on the pitch right now, you would suggest that they probably don't need to do too much. They don't have too many injury problems, and those that are playing are doing well, and the bench looks very strong. But look, it'll be interesting to see how they get on tonight, because they're desperate to win silverware, but they've got a very tough ask against Arsenal in this Carabao Cup semi-final. First leg here at the Emirates tonight, of course, a match you can see later this evening live on Sky Sports. Kick-off here at the Emirates is at 8 o'clock tonight.
Yeah, certainly can. Enjoy the game, Keith. Wish I was there. You can watch it, as Keith says, from 7 o'clock. The coverage starts on Sky Sports Football. It's the first leg of that EFL Cup semi-final. Arsenal taking on Newcastle. Now we've got an update for you regarding Manchester City before we go to a break. They are interested in the Eintracht Frankfurt forward Omar Marmoush. He's the Bundesliga's second top scorer with 13 goals, just behind Harry Kane. And any deal would be difficult to complete, given that we're midway through the season and Eintracht are third in the league at the moment and pushing for Champions League qualification. We also know that they are also looking at Lens centre-back Abdulkadir Kusanov. We will keep you across those potential deals. We've also got a line from the WSL for you, and Everton have signed the Scotland international Emma Watson on loan from Manchester United until the end of the season. She's their third signing of the window. Right, stay with us. We will be live to Greece next for the latest on Antony's future and a potential departure from Aston Villa. Talk now. There could be several players set to leave Manchester United this month. One of those could be Antony, and he may be heading to Greece. Delighted to welcome Greek football journalist Kostas Lianos to the show. Thanks very much for joining us, Kostas. Really appreciate it. What is your information regarding Antony, please?
Well, thank you for having me, of course, as always. As Darmeshev exclusively revealed for Sky Sports yesterday, there is interest in Manchester United player Antony from teams in Spain and Greece. And I can confirm that the Greek club is indeed Olympiacos. Now, the team have denied interest in Antony, but my sources who are extremely close to the situation insist there is indeed interest in Antony in January. Olympiacos are interested in a loan deal. What I'm hearing is Olympiacos are willing to offer 1.5 to 2 million euros as a loan fee for the next 6 months, with an option to buy at around 18 million euros. So a total package of 20 million euros. Now, we could see Olympiacos being able to afford the loan fee, but when it comes to the buyout clause, that's not the kind of money Olympiacos spend. They haven't done so for a very long time. Now, Antony's agent spoke to my esteemed colleague Johnny Georgopoulos yesterday, and he did say that a move to Olympiacos right now would be difficult, and a deal for Antony right now seems unlikely. Now, let's not forget there's interest from other teams as well. This is going to be a very busy January transfer window for Olympiacos, who want to sign a top name at the wings. Olympiacos have been lacking in attack this season compared to last term, when they lost two important players in longtime captain Kostas Fortounis and former Wolves player Daniel Podence, who are among the most important players that led Olympiacos to their historic Europa Conference League triumph in Athens.
No secret, is it, that he has struggled for form since joining Man United? Is there a feeling, though, that he can return to that form that he showed at Ajax?
Well, I mean, since 2013, we've seen a lot of star players coming in for a lot of money at Man United and struggling, such as Paul Pogba, Angel Di Maria, Alexis Sanchez, and now Antony. Of course, Olympiacos is the kind of club that would be able to give a player like Antony different opportunities. Greek football loves a dribbler. They love an entertainer. But of course, Olympiacos, I expect them to be a lot more careful in this January window, as they have seen quite a lot of big names coming in for big money and failing to live up to expectations. Most recently, Willian, who came in as a free agent in September and only lasted for 3 months. And before him, the likes of Sime Vrsaliko, Marcelo, James Rodriguez. Olympiacos can be quite the second chance saloon, but the expectations would still be very high for any player like Antony, any player of that kind of caliber. They would expect the player to deliver, to be a leader, and to impress on the pitch. Olympiacos would be a different kind of opportunity compared to Manchester United and what we've seen in the last few years. But demands from the club, from the team, from the manager, José Luis Mendilibar, and the fans would be extremely high. Nevertheless, Olympiacos are looking for a top name at the wings. This is going to be a very busy January for Olympiacos, I expect.
OK, you mentioned top names there. Who else are Olympiacos interested in signing from the Premier League?
Well, another player that is being mentioned a lot here in Greece is Newcastle's Miguel Almiron. What we've been hearing since last summer is that Newcastle, who are keen on a deal for Almiron, were asking for £10 million, which, again, this is not the kind of money Olympiacos usually spend. But now we're hearing it has dropped to £5 million, which is a lot closer to Olympiacos' standards. But of course, there is intense competition for Almiron from the MLS in Charlotte, as well as Brazil in Sao Paulo, Botafogo, and Santos. Again, Olympiacos looking for a major addition in the wings this January, as they have high hopes, high standards. This is their 100-year anniversary, and Olympiacos' among the real goals is to win the Europa League after winning the Conference League last season. And another name we're hearing a lot of is at left back that Olympiacos really need to add into, and that is Sergio Reguilón from Tottenham, which is a much more doable situation because his contract at Tottenham runs out in June, and he has the same agent as Willian, who is very close to Olympiacos and the Marinakis and Vangelis Marinakis. And that is why Willian's exit from Olympiacos was so smooth, without any drama or financial issues.
Excellent talking to you, Kostas. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
OK, we've just got an update for you, actually, about the West Ham and Julen Lopetegui situation. We've been telling you that Lopetegui's uncertain future at West Ham is uncertain, and he arrived at the club earlier today. We can confirm that he took training ahead of Friday's FA Cup third-round tie at Aston Villa. We know that the club have held talks with Graham Potter about their managerial position in the event that Lopetegui leaves. But Lopetegui has taken training ahead of their FA Cup fixture against Aston Villa. Let's get back to Manchester United, though. Just before we get to Anthony, Dan, I just want to touch on something that David Ornstein of The Athletic has reported, and that is that Borussia Dortmund are amongst the clubs that are interested in Marcus Rashford, particularly in a loan deal. Do you think that would be a good deal for Rashford?
It'd be very interesting, wouldn't it? And first of all, these two clubs have a bit of a history in the last decade or so for doing business together. Manchester United have bought the likes of Shinji Kagawa, Henrik Mkhitaryan in the past, and Borussia Dortmund have also looked the other way in terms of interest in players. We saw what they were able to do with Jadon Sancho, having a return for him last season on loan. And it does make sense if you're Borussia Dortmund, because if they do lose someone like Daniel Marlin, who's been linked with Aston Villa in particular, then they'll need a winger. They play a 4-1 kind of two behind a striker type formation. And actually, if you add Marcus Rashford into that three behind a striker with the likes of Julian Brand, Karim Adeyemi, Jamie Gittins as well, that would be a really exciting, pacey front three behind a striker. So it would be exciting. I also think if you're Marcus Rashford, he's thinking undoubtedly, how can I also, first of all, get back to playing football, but also there's a New England manager in Thomas Tuchel. Where can I play that guarantees me a bit of limelight, a bit of a showcase to get myself back into that squad? And I think Borussia Dortmund would be the place, or a place, where you could potentially do that.
Yeah, good point with the German manager as well. He might appreciate going to a big German club. Let's talk about Anthony, though. We heard there from Kostas, interesting news that Olympiacos very much interested in him. Is Anthony one of the few players, when you hear the numbers there, so Kostas saying that it might be a loan with an option to buy, something around about 18 million euros. Does that show you that Anthony, despite his struggles, is still one of the few Manchester United players that they can actually get some decent money for if they want to move them on?
Yeah, you look at Manchester United, you survey their squad, there's only a few sellable assets. You look at Marcus Rashford, who we've touched on, look at Anthony, because of the age, despite the fact that he was so expensive, you're not going to recoup half the amount of money that you pay for him, but he still is a sellable asset. Look at Casemiro, maybe he's got 18 months left in his contract, and Xerxes, there's been links to a move back to Italy. But then the other players who maybe are surplus requirements at Old Trafford are older and they've got 6 months left on their contract. Look at Ericsson, you look at Lindelof, you look at Johnny Evans. They're not really sellable assets, so it's imperative for them to get some money for Anthony if he is to leave in January. It was interesting though, Costa said an option, not an obligation.
Yeah.
And so that's very, very important. We don't know how Anthony's going to perform. He said that they love a dribbler in Greece, but we don't know if Anthony is of that level. Olympiacos are still a huge club. And so the fact that it's only an option may deter Manchester United, because they need to make sure they get guaranteed money for Anthony, because like I said, he's one of the few sellable assets.
Yeah, but they could take a risk, obviously, and just hope that he does well, and then obviously his value then retains or even goes up slightly. What about Victor Gyökeres? Because we are hearing that he is told Sporting that he will stay in January, but he wants to go in the summer to a top club. Do you think Manchester United will go in for him in the summer?
I think when you bear in mind the links with the manager and how well he's done under that manager previously, it's clear that Manchester United do need a little bit of a revamp up front. They look toothless at times and haven't got that proven marksman, and he is now at the top level, the proven marksman. I think a lot of Premier League clubs, a lot of big European clubs will be kicking themselves that they didn't go in for him when he left Coventry, because look at the price he's going to go for now. It's going to be over double, isn't it, if he leaves? So obviously, for Sporting, it's great that he's going to stay and see out the season. I don't think he was ever going to leave them in January, but that will be one that not just Manchester United a host of big European clubs we'll be looking at in the summer.
Yeah, agreed. There could be a few after him, I think, in the summer, if he is available. Right, we've taken you to Athens. We're going to take you to Paris next to get the latest from Ligue 1, as one of PSG's forwards could be set for a move to the Premier League. Stay tuned.